Hello, everyone. This is Christian Hahn from Hubject, and today I'm very happy to have a great guest here in our next edition of the EV Charging Minds podcast. Today we are here with Afonso Ramos, representing Powerdot. He's leading the company as a CTO, CPO. And Afonso, it would be great if you can shortly introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Christian. Thanks a lot for the invite. I'm very happy to be here. We're partners for a long time, so thanks for the invite. I'm one of the founders of Powerdot. I'm currently Chief Product and Revenue Officer, which means that I lead product and engineering at the company. I'm also accountable for the performance of the charging network, so ultimately my success is measured in terms of kilowatt hour delivered by the network. My role is at, let's say, at the intersection of hardware, software, and demand generation. And that's it. Just make sure that our systems, our network works at scale, from a charger in the middle of France until the price that the energy has and is consumed, basically.
Thanks, Afonso. Super interesting, and already have a couple of questions to go into the details in a second. Afonso, I know it sounds probably a bit odd, but maybe there's someone out there who's not yet knowing Powerdot very well. Would you like to shortly introduce also Powerdot a bit? It's in the meantime one of the main players in regards of the European infrastructure. So it would be good if you can share a bit your perspective on your company.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everyone listening is at least familiar or heard of Powerdot, given the audience. But yeah, we're one of the largest ultra fast charging point operators in Europe. We have over 11,500 charging points spread across 6 different countries. We focus mostly on ultra fast charging at destination charging, which means that we install chargers in places where people already go, where they shop, where they eat, where they run their errands. So we try to make charging as embedded as in people's lives as possible and not as a separate activity. We think that this builds trust. This creates a better experience than fueling. And this is how we demonstrate that it's actually a better experience than fuel. I believe, but I'm biased, that one of the things that distinguishes Powerdot from in the market from other operators is also our tech-driven approach to infrastructure. Reliability is at our core. I think we're going to speak a little bit on how we address that, but also world-class user experience. We care a lot about how users interact with the chargers, how they authenticate, and that's why we partner with you guys on plug and charge as well. Those types of technologies completely reduce friction and build trust, and we put user experience at the core of our priorities. So this is very important. Yeah, but our end goal at the end of the day is making sure that chargers are available, reliable, and people are charging as seamlessly as possible, completely embedded in their lives. And we do it across 11,000 or more than 11,000 charging points across Europe.
Super impressive. Thanks, Afonso. And just to highlight one more point, which I also found very interesting, and it's a great signal how dynamic our industry is. Powerdot, you started in 2019, right? So you're, let's say, one of the probably a bit more younger companies, but still already very successful, which I think is really, really impressive.
Yeah. We started in 2019 in Portugal. We quickly expanded into the other 5 countries. So we are today in Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Poland, and Luxembourg. Over time, we've had the great luck and pleasure of partnering with very renowned and incredible infrastructure investors like Anta Infrastructure Partners in France. So today we've raised over 500 million euros to deploy this 11,500 charging points across these countries. We have a distributed team across all of these markets, more than 200 people. And yeah, we've been doing it for the past 8 years, as you said, since actually end of 2018. That's where we started in Portugal with great ambitions. And yeah, we're executing, doing the work.
One last question, a bit more on the personal side. I think we all have very interesting stories. What brought us into this industry? What is your story? Why did you start setting up one of Europe's largest fast charging network operator?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm one of the founders of the company. So it's me and three other co-founders. And it's an interesting story because Portugal was actually was the first market where Uber Green was launched back in, I don't know, 2017, 16 maybe. And this launch was actually led by my co-founder and our CEO Luis. So I've actually gotten a very early exposure to electric mobility through that, and I guess that at some point Portugal was actually amongst the highest percentage of electrified rides in Uber. So it's a very mature market today in terms of EV adoption.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we realized very early on is that infrastructure is a critical step or a critical link towards EV adoption. And we understood that there was an interesting opportunity to explore. But what really gotten me into the industry was the size of the problem, the complexity and scale of the problem. My background is in product and in software. So I've been building products and solving problems for the majority of my career. And I've never came across a problem as big. But it's not only that, it's real world. It requires software, hardware, energy operations that need to be solved, and physical assets which are distributed across multiple sites, multiple countries that need to work, need to be reliable, and need to deliver a good user experience. And this is a very complex problem to solve at scale. This is very high impact. We're solving how people move from point A to point B. We're actually changing the behavior for a better one that can deliver more value. And I guess that's what has driven me personally, was basically how to figure out how to solve this problem at scale. A very complex problem requires that multiple moving parts work together to deliver this experience, to deliver the reliability, and make sure that we fix this link of the industry that needs to work to build trust and to move the flywheel of EV adoption. And from the start, we always believed that this was possible. Maybe at the time it was not obvious that we were going to reach the scale that we had, but we believed that it was possible with the right execution, the right capital, and we have been fortunate enough to find both and to be able to execute and to find the right partners to get to where we are today. And the problem is not solved yet, and that's what motivates me every day, and I think motivates the team. But we're getting there, and we're doing it. We're doing it at a very interesting scale.
Yeah, yeah, and also seeing right now the latest statistics from 2025 in regards of a number of registered EVs. I think we can definitely see it's starting to work out in a lot of European markets. So I would agree we're in a good way. Not yet there, but definitely in a good way. Afonso, thanks. Super helpful and great overview over what you're doing and what Powerdot has achieved. And when you introduced yourself, you mentioned that you are the Chief Product Officer and the Chief Revenue Officer. I would say it's fair to say that this is not the most obvious combination of responsibilities. At least I haven't seen it that often yet in the industry. But I think it's a very interesting combination indeed, because as you said, reliability and revenue generation is closely attached to each other. So therefore, from your point of view, and you highlighted it already a bit in your introduction, I understood reliability is one of the key success factors for Powerdot. Can you explain us a bit more why this is the case? What is the strategic perspective behind this strong focus on reliability?
Yeah, absolutely. And reliability is what builds trust. Reliability is what gets people to trust in EVs and gets people to adopt. And from very early on, we understood that that was our core, that needed to be part of our core mission to deliver the reliability. And I think the biggest challenge in doing so is moving at the speed and scale that we did and still be able to deliver a very, very high standard of reliability. I think we're probably the CPO who has deployed more ultra-fast charging points in less time in Europe over the past years. As I said, we have now over 11,500 of them spread across different countries. I think this required a lot of discipline, a lot of focus, but above all, a world-class team, which we do have. And we have, since day one, understood that reliability, no matter the scale, no matter the speed, reliability needed to be there at the core of the mission. This is how we build trust with users, with drivers. This is how we get them to come back. And I think it comes mostly from three non-negotiables that we have established very, very early on. I think the first one is how we look at hardware. So how we procure hardware. We have a very strict process, but also we take a lot of the things into our own hands in terms of assessing the quality and how a certain charger will work in real life conditions. The second is also, since day one, we've looked at technology not as a need, not as something that is secondary or it just needs to be there for us to build our network, but as something that is part of our DNA. We build and operate almost all of the technology that we use to manage our network, from operations to deployment to what have you. So we build it all in-house, and we've done it since very, very early on, and we understood that that technology needed to be part of our DNA for us to distinguish and for us to be at this scale. And obviously this contributes a lot to reliability. So we have real-time detection of resolution, all of the automations possible to solve problems, to reduce downtime, data. We have a very, very big focus there as well to run the network. Over the past couple of years, we've been deploying more and more AI into our operations to predict failures, to do self-healing on the chargers, and reduce downtime before anyone even notices it. So the outcome of this is reliability. It's more reliability. It's a system that scales, and it's used at the end of the day is driver trust. And the third non-negotiable, or the third thing that we have implemented, is also in-house operations at scale. So we have teams which are Powerdot teams that monitor the chargers, that support the users. We have in-field technicians that go across the country, making interventions, solving problems, and problems are resolved in hours, not days. And I guess this is very important. This was possible because we've been able to build, let's say, this operations engine in-house, and an amazing team that is out there every day supporting users, monitoring chargers, and also creates this, let's say, feedback loop between the field, between our product and technology teams and procurement, because we're able to execute in-house all of these functions. Communication, information, feedback flows very fast, and we're able to iterate and develop and improve every single day based on having all of these functions operating within Powerdot. And obviously, this is only possible because we've achieved a certain size and a certain scale. But I would say these three non-negotiables is how we make sure we deliver reliability at scale while deploying this fast.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing these fantastic insights. Very, very impressive. And I understand the rationale behind the high level of insourcing. But coming back a bit to your first non-negotiable topic, the hardware procurement, this is probably not yet what you have on your roadmap to do by yourself as well, right? Producing your own hardwares. But how do you manage right now the situation, at least what I receive from the market? Then on the one hand, of course, you have an increasing number of hardware manufacturers coming from all around the world now to Europe, having products in different levels of maturity, which is great to see. On the other hand, of course, we also see a stronger dependency on the availability and the rollout processes of new software versions as well. At least on our side, we definitely have more issues based on this because, of course, not every feature has been properly tested, and then sometimes it's not working anymore. How do you foresee this as well? Do you think there will be a bit more consolidation on this side of the hardware manufacturers, or do you decide to only work with one or two companies, or do you believe in a more broader approach and then managing complexity a bit more on your side?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Because we've built in-house our engineering team and focused both on hardware and software, and not only that, I'm sure you've visited it recently. We've built this what we call Powerlab. So it's basically an innovation lab where we test all of our hardware and software, but also a little bit of user experience. We've taken a little bit of a broader approach, but we take things into our own hands. So basically, we test everything end to end in real world conditions. So we don't just rely on what is in the fact sheet, on the supplier fact sheet. So we test everything ourselves. We take a very, very disciplined approach to quality when it comes to a supplier, and then we abstract as much as possible and of that complexity. So for us, we've built this strategy where we can confidently and reliably work with multiple suppliers, because we are very disciplined when it comes to testing, when it comes to assessing the charger performance in real world conditions. As you know, our lab is also open to the public, which means we get feedback from real users, very controlled environment. So we were able to build this, let's say, conditions to adopt a strategy where we can work with multiple suppliers and mitigate any problems that might exist. And then I think the second factor is that, given our scale and the number of chargers we procure, we also have been able to build very strong relationships with suppliers, which means that the feedback loop is very quick, and we're able to work with the suppliers to fix problems, and we actually contribute towards product development on the supplier side, to adjust anything that we find not to be up to Powerdot standard. And if that doesn't happen, well, we take that into consideration, and obviously, because we work with multiple suppliers and we are able to do it, we just take that into consideration into our procurement strategy.
I would say another quite interesting topic in regards of Powerdot is also that you are a very large CPO, very large transport operator, but also with a strong or only focusing on the CPO business, so pure play CPO, how we call it, which I think is interesting because you spoke about the diversity in our ecosystem, and of course the diversity is not only in place for companies and hardware models and so on, but also in regards of business models, right? We see right now quite diverse landscape as well on different business models. What brought you to the conclusion as Powerdot that focusing on pure play CPO is the right way to move forward?
Yeah, so as I was saying, EV charging is a multi-stakeholder problem.
Indeed.
CPOs, roaming hubs, MSPs, NSPs, OEMs, charger manufacturers, energy grid operators. It's a multi-stakeholder problem, and being a pure play CPO means we focus. We focus on what we do well, because our success depends entirely on how well the infrastructure performs. It depends on uptime, utilization, and it depends on user experience. Those three elements are key to our success. And we believe that the best outcome for users, for drivers, comes from partnership. Comes from partnership between us, between roaming, between OEMs, grid operators, and all of the stakeholders in the industry. Only when we come together and we partner do we build solutions that actually build trust in users, that actually get users to adopt EV charging and realize it's actually a better experience. It's a way better experience than fuel. A very high percentage. We've actually launched a recent survey. We've published this. A very high percentage of users who drive an EV have said that they won't go back. And the best user experience comes from open infrastructure, comes from strong partnerships, comes from deep integrations, comes from OEMs working with us, working with chargers, suppliers, to make sure that the success rate of sessions increases, that their car firmwares are compatible and work with charger firmwares, to make sure that we're able to understand exactly and how we need to manage a charger from authentication to payment. And our role is to specialize, is to build the most reliable and scalable infrastructure that we can. Let OEMs build the best car that they can, and let MSPs create and act and be a pull on the demand side. Let grid operators fix constraints. But our role is to specialize and to work with all of these stakeholders to create a coherent experience for the driver. There are faster feedback loops. We're able to better allocate capital to do what we're good at doing, which is building this very large infrastructure network at scale, and solve a very important part of the link, which is the infrastructure. Also feeding the positive flywheel towards EV adoption.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, for us, focus is key, and partnership is how we unlock the maximum value within the sector.
One last question. An important part in regards of reliability is, of course, not only the chargers and the software behind, but also the electric vehicles being used. Based on all the data insights you have in your vast network, do you see any trend you can share with us? Are EVs getting more or less reliable? Is there even such a pattern visible, or does it very much depend on the, I don't know, manufacturer? Do you have any insights you can share with us here today?
Well, I don't have any insight in the sense that I see this or this particular EV brand with higher failure rates. But to that point, and just coming back to what I was saying on the Powerlab is not just a place where we test chargers. It's also a place where we test the connection between the CPO soft stack, chargers, and cars, OEMs. So we've been recently cooperating with a few OEMs very closely to also test the cars in real life conditions, to test the cars with our CPO stack, the charger, and how they all interact in order to minimize any problems that might occur. And this was true for the recent plug and charge launch that we just did. We've made a very extensive test with all of the chargers, but not only chargers. We also brought all of the OEMs or most of the OEMs that support to test the cars. And I guess this will help minimize those failure rates. And EV charging is a multi-stakeholder ecosystem, and stakeholders need to work
Indeed.
together, and they need to focus on what they do well, but they need to work together to solve the problems, because I don't think any one player will be able to do it alone. And we should all work together, from roaming, CPOs, charger manufacturers, OEMs, grid, energy. It's a multi-stakeholder problem.
Thanks, Afonso. Reflecting a bit on the complexity of the ecosystem, and I fully understand your very strong focus. And taking into account we already have a complex ecosystem, you mentioned all the roles. Thanks for doing so. Is there any topic where you would say, which is right now a bit of a white spot topic, where nobody's really taken care of, where you would say, this one topic is exactly the missing link here for future success? Maybe not for Powerdot, but maybe for someone else, for the people who are listening to this podcast, where they could start a new company on to solve the last bigger challenge in this industry. Any recommendation, any insights you can share with us?
Yeah, I think there are probably a few.
Okay.
One, I'm not necessarily recommending anyone creates a company around it. I'm just sharing an insight on some things I think should be improved. And let me, for instance, focus on one around partnership and user experience, which is, I think that the ecosystem, in order to succeed, requires a deeper partnership between CPOs and OEMs specifically, so that OEMs, when they're building cars, they take into account the experience as a whole. So it's basically an holistic approach to the experience of charging an EV. On the CPO side, we need to make sure and work extensively around data. So making sure that data is complete, that is reliable, our chargers are easy to be found, and making sure we're delivering the right experience there. On the OEM side, making sure that that information is being displayed correctly across the infotainment system, making sure that routes are properly surfaced and take into account all of that data, which is accurate on the CPO side, making sure that when a user drives to a station, he's able to plug the car and leave and doesn't have to do anything else. And all of this is being solved, I would say, for the most part, but in some cases it's being solved in isolation. And I think a higher degree of cooperation between OEMs and EMSP and EMSPs as well, but OEMs, CPOs is something we should work on, a deeper level of cooperation. Working together on product development and looking at the charging experience from an holistic perspective. But yeah, I mean, you have a lot of different opportunities still within the industry, both on the user experience side, but also on the energy side, which is also something very interesting, that when the more and more we scale EV adoption and EV infrastructure deployment, we'll need to solve as well. So a lot of interesting opportunities for startups and new companies to get into the sector and solve.
Thanks. Yeah, again, quite insightful. Maybe coming sooner or later to an end of this podcast, and thanks again for sharing all these super valuable insights. When you're right now looking into the adoption of EVs, we mentioned in the beginning, we're in a good way. What would be your recommendation to a non-EV driver to make them convinced that switching to electric vehicle is the right approach? What is your key rationale, your key recommendation here?
Yeah, so I'll be very biased on this one, and looking at the problem that Powerdot specifically solves within the EV charging realm. So if you look at, for instance, destination charging, just to explain very briefly what destination charging is, it's basically what we do is we install chargers in places where people already go on their day-to-day. So from retail to hotel to gym, shopping mall. So we try to find places completely embedded into people's routines and daily lives. And we believe that the main purpose for your visit to one of these places is not to charge, is to do whatever you were going to do anyways. So if you think about that, today, whenever you want to fill your car with gas, you need to make a detour from your life to go to a gas station. And in the future, hopefully, you will not need to make absolutely any detours from your daily life. You'll just go to the supermarket where you were already going. You will just go to the gym where you were already going, and there's a charger there, and you plug, and you do whatever you were going to do, and you leave, and you don't even think about it. And with plug and charge, you can actually really just plug and go and do anything else rather than waiting the car until the battery is full. And if you think about that, and if we are able to achieve that, which I think we are today in a very good point, it's a way better experience than fueling your car. And the infrastructure is already there. We're at a point in the markets where we operate, at least, we're at a point where most likely you will find a charger in your daily routine, and you will be able to go shopping, you will be able to go to the gym and leave your car and come back, and the infrastructure is adjusted to the dwelling time. The design of the user experience is adjusted to where the charger is, and everything works seamlessly.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And thanks again. Fantastic insights. And as a summary, it's just so much better than everything else. So let's make more people switching to EVs. Afonso, thank you very much. Great conversation. And again, I'm really, really thankful that you have shared so many great insights with us. Thanks a lot, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Christian.